I'm absolutely thrilled to guide you through today's topic. We're looking at a deeply human, incredibly complex story of leadership, the presidency of Lyndon B. Johnson. It's a tenure that's really defined by two massive colliding forces. On one hand, you have these monumental, historic domestic achievements, and on the other, a highly contentious, deeply polarizing foreign policy. The Great Society and the burdens of war. Keep those two extremes in mind as we go. They literally represent the ultimate duality of his time in office.
So, let's dive right into our central question. How does a president balance the creation of a great society with the heavy, heavy burdens of a divisive war? It is, without a doubt, the ultimate test of executive power and human endurance. Over the course of this explainer, we're going to follow a distinct narrative arc: the incredible rise, the sweeping triumphs, and, well, the heavy tragedy of Johnson's political life. But to understand the leader he became, we really have to understand exactly where he started.
Section 1. Rise from rural Texas.
Starting from rural poverty, having worked his way through Southwest Texas State Teachers College, Johnson's political ascent was, honestly, masterful. In 1937, he campaigned successfully for the House of Representatives, running vigorously on a New Deal platform. Crucially, he was aided by his wife, Claudia Lady Bird Taylor. During World War II, he actually took a brief leave to serve in the Navy as a lieutenant commander, earning a Silver Star in the South Pacific. And then, the climb just accelerates. After 6 terms in the House, he's elected to the Senate in 1948. By 1953, he's the Senate Minority Leader. Just 2 years later, in 55, the Democrats win control, and he grabs the reins as Majority Leader. This relentless momentum culminated in the 1960 campaign, where he's elected vice president as John F. Kennedy's running mate. It is a textbook climb to the very top.
Section 2. An unexpected presidency. The culmination of all those ambitions didn't arrive through an election victory of his own, though. It came through one of the darkest days in American history. On November 22, 1963, following the tragic assassination of President Kennedy, Johnson had to step up and immediately stabilize a deeply traumatized country. And he did this through decisive legislative action. He immediately prioritized enacting measures that President Kennedy had been urgently pushing right before his death. Leveraging his immense mastery of Congress, Johnson secured a major civil rights bill and a critical tax cut. And doing so, he provided continuity and steady leadership when the nation needed it most.
Now, think about the number 15 million. That is the staggering scale of the political mandate he earned shortly after. In the 1964 presidential election, Johnson didn't just win, he absolutely dominated. He defeated Arizona Senator Barry Goldwater by more than 15 million votes. That's not just a win, it was an overwhelming tidal wave of public support, handing him a massive mandate to govern completely on his own terms.
Section 3. Building the Great Society.
So, armed with this massive political capital, Johnson hits his domestic peak. His ultimate goal? To cure the kind of crushing poverty he had experienced firsthand in his youth. He finally had the power to reshape the country to address those hardships. And he articulated this vision perfectly, urging the nation, quote, to build a great society, a place where the meaning of man's life matches the marvels of man's labor. This wasn't just some catchy political slogan. No, this was the central thesis of his presidency. It was a visionary call to action, marking a major turning point in American history, where the federal government stepped up aiming to directly elevate the quality of life for all its citizens.
And he executed that vision with a staggering list of legislative triumphs in 1965. Working with a heavily Democratic Congress, he enacted legislation augmenting federal aid to education. He oversaw the historic creation of Medicare. He fiercely advocated for urban renewal and conservation efforts. But perhaps most significantly, on August 6, 1965, he signed the Voting Rights Act. This was absolutely revolutionary, as it legally removed the systemic obstacles that had been preventing African Americans from exercising their constitutional right to vote. He was literally transforming the very fabric of American democracy.
Section 4. Championing the Space Program.
Now, while he was rebuilding society down here on Earth, Johnson was also looking up. Under his administration, the country made spectacular explorations of space. You see, this was a program he had championed from its very start. He strongly and consistently supported NASA, first as a senator and then right from the Oval Office. His steadfast dedication to the cosmos actually earned him a permanent legacy among the stars. Well, sort of. In 1973, NASA's Center for Human Spaceflight was officially renamed the Lyndon B. Johnson Space Center.
Section 5. The Vietnam War Dilemma.
500,000. It's a deeply sobering figure. Like the presidents before him, Johnson was committed to communist containment, but his approach would unfortunately define the tragedy of his administration.
Despite largely secret and ultimately fruitless efforts to broker a peace settlement, the war in Vietnam escalated drastically under his command. It surged to a peak of 500,000 American troops actively involved in the conflict. Historically, this 500,000 troop deployment stands in stark, heavy contrast to that 15 million vote mandate of hope he'd won just a few years prior. Ultimately, the war overwhelmed his presidency.
By the end of March 1968, the controversy surrounding the war was just acute. In a dramatic move, Johnson limited the bombing to initiate negotiations, but simultaneously shocked the entire world by dropping out of the re-election race. Public suspicions immediately swirled, with critics claiming he was just escaping an inevitable political defeat. But Johnson, he insisted on a very different reason. He stated publicly that he stepped away to devote his full, undivided energies to seeking peace in Vietnam without the distraction of a political campaign.
Section 6. A complicated American legacy.
Johnson eventually returned to his Texas ranch, and in a truly poignant moment, right before his death from a heart attack in 1973, he actually received a call from President Nixon informing him that a peace agreement was finally at hand. This moment perfectly underscores his deeply dualistic footprint in history. On one hand, Americans laud Lyndon B. Johnson for his Herculean, almost unmatched efforts to change American society for the better, creating programs that still support millions of people today. But on the other hand, there is a profound historical regret regarding his expansion of the country's military commitment in Southeast Asia. It's simply impossible to look at one side without acknowledging the immense scale of the other.
I want to leave you with a final, highly reflective quote from Johnson's last appearance before Congress in 1969. Predicting our history might view him a century later, he said, "But I believe that at least it will be said that we tried." It's a powerful statement, right? It really makes you wonder, when a leader is handed unprecedented political power, alongside an impossible inherited global conflict, how much of their legacy is determined by their own ambition and how much is dictated by the inescapable burdens of their time. Thank you so much for exploring the complex life and presidency of Lyndon B. Johnson with me. I really encourage you to keep questioning, keep learning, and dive even deeper into this fascinating era of history.